This episode is with a beautiful guest. Her name is Taylor Norris. She's a Reiki master. She's a galactic astrologer and a yoga teacher and a health coach. And in her practice, she combines all of this and letting it all guide both the client and herself forward. In this episode, we talk about our multidimensional self, and specifically, what is our multidimensional self and how can we gain insight about our multidimensionality and also how we can integrate it into our lives. We also talk about the important topic of energetic boundaries as we all learn how to become sovereign in terms of how we manage our energy and stand in our power as we expand and have a bigger perspective through our multidimensional self. It's very important to learn energetic boundaries. So we're talking about that. We also talk about spiritual practice and how it can become a lifestyle, as it's so important to know what is the impact on my life that I'd like to have with the spiritual practice. I've put Taylor's full bio in the description box if you're curious, and also links to connect with her. So welcome, Taylor. How are you?
Aloha. I'm doing very well. Happy to be here and definitely inspired to talk about this important topic together.
Yes,
We're
I'm so
having
happy. I'm so happy you said yes to this because you are one of I would call them role models in terms of integrating your multidimensional self. And we'll get into why in a second. But Taylor, just as a kickoff, I'm curious myself about your definition about what is our multidimensional self? What is it?
it is seeing the self from a bigger perspective. So starting to understand and ask the question, who am I? Who am I really? And listening for the answers to well up from within to come through the senses for this knowingness and remembrance and experience of who one truly is directly.
Yeah.
Rather, as opposed to these stories we're told about who we are, from our upbringing, our conditioning, our programming, our education, from the media, from social media, from all the different people in our lives who have ideas about who we are and even about what humans are. So the multidimensional self is coming into that greater sense of awareness and expanded perspective about who am I as an individual? Why am I here? And it branches out into many other fruitful questions to listen around, such as, what are humans? Like, what does it mean to be a human being? And what does it mean to be a soul? What does it mean to be a spiritual being? And so really, it's an investigation. It's an investigation that I think we're all invited to tap into and delve into in this human life. And it's certainly a precious investigation, and it's a precious process that I think takes place and unfolds over the course of the lifetime or many lifetimes, if you want to see it that way. So it's inviting in a remembrance of one's soul history, one's awareness, like beyond the confines of a limited, human experience, beyond the confines of who we are as personalities or as egos or as, bodies, like human bodies. So yeah, those are some initial thoughts and perspectives
Yes.
flowing
I love
through.
everything of that. Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
love that you're giving us an image of an investigation, an inner investigation, as opposed to the searching that many of us have done for many years in the past around like, what is my identity, if you will, from, reflecting that from outer mirrors, this investigation. Can you give some examples, or maybe one example from your own life where you realize that this is an investigation that can be experienced in different ways?
yeah, I think it's, other words that are coming too. It's like exploration and curiosity. I think it's just getting really curious about like, who am I? And much of my journey, I mean, I could trace it back to, many different points in this life, but meditation was a really useful tool for tapping into that greater sense of awareness, like just being still and sitting and noticing my mind, noticing my thoughts, noticing my feelings, and learning not to identify with them and attach to them so strongly, just to witness, like just to be the observer. And I think that was a really helpful foundation and, really strong ground upon which to start building my multidimensional self. Was, creating more spaciousness between, um, having the thought or having the feeling, and being able to step back a little bit and view it more objectively, and notice, have greater sense of spaciousness. So that really seemed to, again, like create space so that the remembrance of the multidimensional self could have somewhere to go. Because if it's just all cluttered with thoughts and feelings and impulses and reactions and total identification with thoughts and feelings and, the human body and the human urges and desires, there's not space for the other dimension, so to speak,
Yeah.
to even be there, right? Or be recognized, be noticed, be heard. So yeah, that was a really, really foundational process for me to start to engage with. And it seems like it is for many. So what about you?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was very similar to yours. It's the hardest part is to make the decision, and because my experience is very similar to yours in terms of that created space that's needed to be able to witness and observe ourselves and say, okay, do I really love this about myself, or that I'm keep reiterating the same thought over and over and over, let's say, and that I'm so attached to it that that's my identity. And when I realized that maybe I should focus on something else. Right. And that's a choice within that investigational journey, that it ultimately is our choice what we focus on and what we spend time on and what we expand in our lives. So just coming to that realization that it is my choice, what I want to focus on, whether it's going to be the attachments that are not serving me that well, or if it's something that actually makes me feel good and more harmonious inside. And I think that's, so that experience for me allowed me to kind of shift my focus basically, but it required that I shift my day. And I think that's the integration part of it that we are also going to talk about today. Like, what is it practically that we can do, that we're invited to do differently in our daily life? Because that's the integration to actually make these shifts happen. And for me, it was to deliberately slowing down and choose to do different things, focus on different things in my day. And as opposed to being booked all the time, let's say back-to-back meetings, I gave myself space between the meetings to come down and meditate, let's say, or reconnect, do a little journaling or about something and something that came in. And that space allowed me to start witnessing what was going on. So, yeah. And from that, I learned a lot about myself and what my talents are, let's say, or what my interests are. And I don't know what about you. What did you have? Did you have some sort of turning point on your journey so far that actually made the biggest impact? I don't know if you have. I mean, we multiple turning points in our lives, obviously, but when it comes to kind of that spaciousness that you were talking about, because a lot of people are likely like asking themselves, like, how can I create this spaciousness and find all these insights and do the investigation? And maybe your example is going to help somebody to kind of, okay, that makes sense to me. What we're talking about.
Yeah, major turning point for me, like you said, there are a couple ones I could talk about, but in terms of really the spaciousness and the revealing of my authentic self, which is my multidimensional self, is my timeless soul self, spirit self, was Reiki, was actually taking my first Reiki training and having one particular spiritual path that was connected to a recent past life fall away and complete. And I had space to receive my next spiritual path. And the next, I didn't realize at the time, steps in my career and my service as well. So for me, it was taking my first Reiki 1 and 2, beginner training, not really knowing what I was getting into or why I was there, other than once again listening to my heart and like everything in my body and my being saying, you just need to do it. You need to do it. And what started happening was, I remembered my gift as a channel, as a healer, as I remembered my connection to my soul, to my spirit, to this infinite source of universal life force, love, energy, unconditionally loving energy. And so many insights and downloads and information started coming in. My clairsenses really started opening. They had been opening prior, and I realized also the degree to which they were already open, And what keeps opening in terms of the multidimensional self, I mean, it's nonstop. And it's what also ultimately led me to astrology as a way to investigate more specifics and even cross-validate the intuition and the wisdom and the downloads and the insights that were pouring in through my Reiki practice. Because, I have a bit of a scientific mind too. And it's like, I want proof, I want validation, I want confirmation. I want to know that this is accurate. I'm not making it up. And astrology was then a way to see, oh no, you're definitely not making this up.
It's actually right here.
Yeah. I can show it to you on paper, in black and white, in color, in symbols.
Yeah.
And so this was my turning point.
So beautiful. And it sounds like you were really blooming at that point, as far as, realizing that, wow, I am, right? I'm in this universal flow and harmony with who I am, but also that it's pouring in support for that. So yeah, I love that. And I think your example is an inspirational display of what can happen when we start to kind of listen to that guidance. Like when you first, I need to do that Reiki training. It's like when something like that comes into us, which happened for me as well, like listen to it, go for it, do it. And for once, leave the mind chatter behind that says, you can't do it. What should I do? What would that be a use for? Or anything like, if we can put that down and just go for it, this is what can happen, like for that it did for Taylor here. And I love that example because it's not that you felt that you had to do much to get there. It's more like following an inspiration, following where it takes you. And once that shift happens, that we start to follow an inspiration, follow our intuitive downloads, if you will, that's when we can sit back and relax. And who doesn't want to do that, right? Yeah, beautiful. But if we bring it now to the multidimensional level and the importance and how we can integrate kind of energetic boundaries, because that's, in my opinion, a key skill, if you will, or energetic kind of management of our own energy. Because the bigger we become in terms of our perception of who we are, there's also a need for us to be in charge of that energy field, right? That expanded perception of ourselves. What's your view on energetic boundaries and the importance of it?
Yeah, it's so interesting just listening to you. I'm like, gosh, this is so real. Like this is so real and it just feels so important. And yeah, it's I will say I have a south node. My natal south node is in the 8th house. So other people's energy, other people's stuff, I had to learn. This is a lifetime mission for me to understand boundaries, especially as regards more of the invisible, more nebulous, like the energetic ones, which can be tricky. So, I started out with years of therapy trying to understand how boundaries work from a psychological perspective and interpersonal perspective, and like what is a boundary. It was something I did not have experience with, really, that I could have them, that I needed them, that they were important. And so, yeah, I started out with years of therapy, with group therapy, with then studying and training as a psychologist and as a therapist, and like really investing into how does this work? Because I knew I was an empath, I was a sensitive, I was someone who as a child had my clairsenses all online and my empathy very strong, and telepathy and mediumship and all kinds of gifts as a child, animal communication. And so it was very, very important for me to learn boundaries, and learning them from a psychological perspective was part of the picture. But given that I had all these other levels and gradients of sensitivity, that was incomplete for me to learn boundaries only from a psychological or a therapeutic, mainstream therapeutic perspective. It was insufficient. It was not enough. So, I was really kind of floundering there for a while, and not sure where to turn. And once again, it was actually with my first Reiki training and then with my advanced Reiki studies that I've come to learn the subtleties of energetic boundaries by becoming more aware of my own energy, becoming more aware of energy in general, and then as a practitioner learning about other people's energy systems, and then having a healthy outlet for my gifts and my talents and my empathy to flow into, rather than, just feeling like I needed to hold space and be a therapist and be an empath for everybody in every occasion all the time, like having that be my default mode, as I need to just heal everybody, all the time, and there's no space for me to have feelings or have any of that. So that was really major, and just continuing to develop my intuition through advanced Reiki training, but then also with other intuitive development paths I've taken, with psychic development, mediumship development, with the Galactic Astrology course we've both taken. There's some intuition development as a part of that course with Julia Balaz. So all of that has really, really helped. So I've just come to know my own intuition, my own sensitivity. And, in basic Reiki 1 trainings, we're taught like energy clearing techniques and things like that. So that was very, very helpful for me. Absolutely essential, and kind of rounding out my training and my understanding. But I'm definitely on a lifelong trajectory with the energetic boundaries thing.
Yeah.
I by no means think it's like a complete, like, I just find it infinitely fascinating, and I'm learning all the time how it works.
Yeah. So if somebody is listening or watching this wondering, like, I don't know where to start with this. I feel everybody's energy and everything around me. I don't know how to know what's mine and not. What would you say to that person who's saying, I kind of want to start learning what energetic boundaries really are? What would you say that person could do or start with to integrate this practice to get to know itself? Because there's nobody that's going to tell another person what's right for them when it comes to energetic boundaries. It's an experience, it's a journey to find out for ourselves how that works within ourselves, because it's a self-regulating mechanism, if you will, that we have to learn. What would you give for advice to that listener or viewer right now?
Yeah, I would say get training. It's skill development. This is another life skill, and it can be a professional skill too. It's a life skill. So it would apply to relationships, to your professional life, to your personal life, to, your health, your wellness, all of it. So, whether that's a beginner Reiki class, Reiki 1 and 2 training, whether that's intuitive development, I like to recommend Reiki first, because again, it's bringing in that healing energy. It's automatically filling you up with life, so that, it's a way to like not correct the situation of being drained really quickly with Reiki, and also adding in the more intuition development pieces. But it's a nice foundation, because then, I remember very early on in my Reiki journey, it was like every other astrologer or psychic or medium or soul reader that I was coming across, what I noticed is they were all saying they all started with Reiki, like as a foundation first. It was some kind of key that it's almost like, as any type of reader you might become, or any type of intuitive you might eventually become, if you're so guided and on that path to, be a multidimensional professional. Reiki can be a very good foundation for that. And even if you're not guided to make any kind of career or living from this type of work, you just want it as a life skill, you don't necessarily know beyond that. I think a basic Reiki training or other kinds of intuitive development, start learning about how your own energy body works, and even the value of those types of trainings. Typically, they involve practice. So you get to practice whatever you're learning with others and have that experience of knowing how the energetic boundaries are working in relation to another. And that practice, again, even if you're not going to do it professionally, is absolutely invaluable and can help you in your day-to-day life as a professional, or as a mother, as a father, as a, any other role you might be in. So yeah, it's a skill like anything else, and just to develop it is what I would recommend.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I would wholeheartedly. I don't have anything to add to that, because it's a beautiful entry point to self-awareness, but also to these, integrated tools, practices that we need to take care of ourselves and our big self, if you will. I call it our big self. Yeah, and that leads us into the last kind of block of conversation here around spiritual practice, because part of it is also to shift our, at least in my experience, it's to allow ourselves to shift our lifestyle, if you will. Just like we're brushing teeth in the morning, there is a invitation to include some of these practices that are relating to our energy, so that we can stay in harmony, stay in balance, stay happy, right? Aligned to our life force. So I'd love to kind of explore the topic of spiritual practice with you. But I'm curious, your view on spiritual practice, and also a little nugget from your own.
Yeah, I'm right there with you about spiritual practice as a lifestyle, like not separation, like as part of one's holistic lifestyle, and having it really weave in throughout the day and be a part of even the quote unquote like non-spiritual seeming activities. So just self-observance even of one's day is spiritual practice. So I think, it's expanding beyond this idea of seated meditation practice 15 minutes morning and evening, or yoga asana practice every morning for 45 minutes. Like, I like to do these things too. I practice my yoga asanas every day. I do self Reiki every day. I play with my oracle cards every morning. I light candles and burn incense, and I journal intentions and affirmations. I chant, I sing intentions. I have a drum. Sometimes I play that. I do little ceremonies for myself as I'm guided. I make moon water. I do all kinds of fun things. And it's all unfolding all the time. And I think of my service as my spiritual practice too. So when I'm preparing readings for clients, when I'm in a reading with somebody, when I'm sharing a Reiki session with someone else, when I'm in a Reiki class or teaching a Reiki class, when I'm at a Reiki chair, I mean, it's all the way folded through my life. Even in my car feels like a little sanctuary for when I'm out in the world. I just come back in my car that I've attuned to Reiki, and I automatically just feel like I drop right back in as soon as I get in my car and take a breath, and like I'm in my sacred energy field of my car. So yeah, it is. It's my lifestyle. And sometimes, some days, maybe I don't have time to do a really long self Reiki session or a really long meditation. Maybe I lay there for only a minute or two and just invoke all the Reiki symbols. Sometimes, before bed is a really good time also to do self Reiki right before falling asleep. So it can be really short and sweet, the spiritual practice feeling part of it or time of it. But really it is. It's just woven throughout my day, and that's how I like it to be.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the effects of it, that we can quickly tap into our multidimensional self, and practice will help us do that much quicker than not having a practice, right? So I love that example your of your life, because it has grown with time, and you add what you've been drawn to. And it's the same with me. Like, it's always something that I kind of feel more passionate about in the moment, and that's what I'm drawn to, and that's what I'm doing that day. Yeah, I love that. So if somebody is kind of really resonating with our conversation in this episode and say, okay, you guys are speaking my need, my desire, because spiritual practice is also like getting training, for example, in Reiki, a gateway, a portal to somebody's inquiry, right? Or investigation of self. But when it comes to spiritual practice, if somebody came to you and said, okay, where do I start with spiritual practice? Meditation is sometimes kind of the way to go, right? But if somebody comes to you and say, hey, how do I integrate it in my day, or integrate let's say self Reiki, or connection with nature every day? So this is the question, like, how do we best allow it to become a practice, which is something we bring back and come back to on a regular basis? Doesn't have to be every day, not right for everyone, but I'm saying like a regular basis. What would you say, Taylor, to someone who wants to kind of really make it a lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things come to mind is start small and start with what excites you most. And I think that can even be the question every day, is what excites me the most? Is it sitting down and letting my inner child like doodle for as long as my inner child wants to, and not forcing, certain number of pages, you need to draw, or it needs to look good, or something like this? Is it, what really excites me is walking somewhere beautiful in nature. So having the practice be like asking that question every day, rather than having a prescribed idea about what the practice needs to be. That could be a way to work with it if you're having trouble, let's say, doing the same thing consistently every day. Now, if you are somebody who loves a schedule and routine, like I really like that. I love doing certain things the same every day. And for me, what's more balancing is sometimes to add more of the flow and the fluidity to it. So if you are someone who wants to like schedule or pencil something in, and maybe you don't have a lot of time, that's where what I'm suggesting is before bed. If you're Reiki attuned, just activate all the Reiki symbols and give yourself a self Reiki session until you fall asleep. And it can even be one hand position, or, if you haven't taken a Reiki class, that's not your practice, doing some kind of meditation before bed, a guided meditation. I have lots of those on my YouTube channel, Taylor Norris Reiki. You can just listen to one of my guided Reiki journeys, or, any kind of guided meditation you feel drawn to. So listening to one of those before bed, and you can fall asleep. Like, that's the best part. Like, you don't really even have to have time. I mean, you're going to sleep. So, yeah, that would be a place to start because, astrologically, it is Saturn and Pisces time right now. We're having this transit, and the potency and the power of the dream time and the sleep time is really enhanced. So if you are someone who feels called to kind of explore that too, something as simple as writing down your dreams in the morning or setting an intention before bed. I will remember my dreams. I will write them down. That can be a really fun and powerful practice that would be a timely and astrologically supported practice for right now. So yeah, I'll throw that one in there in case it resonates with someone.
Yes, such beautiful suggestions, and there was a plethora of picks here that get inspired by. So yeah, I love all of it. Thank you. Spiritual practice is a big topic, and I think we'll just wrap it up with kind of that piece that it's more of a lifestyle, not so much that checklist. and if we allow ourselves to view it that way, the flow will come as far as what is my spiritual practice and where should I place it in my day. It's again that investigation, what works for me. Like, so beautiful. Thank you for all your perspectives and experiences and knowledge, expertise that you've shared in this episode. I just love having a conversation with you. So thank you. Now, I want to know, because I'm curious too, like if somebody here wants to reach out to you or learn more about your work, where would they go?
TaylorNorrisReiki.com is my website, and on there you will find the sessions and the readings I offer. I offer online Reiki classes. If you're completely new to Reiki or you're wanting some support, I also offer a new moon distant Reiki share for free every single month that everybody's welcome to, even if you have, no matter what your spiritual practice is, you're welcome to be there. And that's a way I like to start my month and the moon cycle, with intention setting and coming together in community and blessing the intentions for the month ahead as a group, and with this wonderful life force energy supporting us. So that's available. I also have a YouTube channel, Taylor Norris Reiki. Like I said, many different Reiki journeys, Reiki meditations there, as well as more and more astrology all the time, and galactic astrology, because that's just so much fun. And if you are an investigator and you want more of the information and downloads and specifics about your multidimensional soul, I do the Galactic Astrology Soul Readings, and that's where those get really deep and comprehensive and thorough, exploring and kind of pinpointing aspects of the multidimensional soul. And my Reiki healing sessions are there as well. And that same information kind of comes in a different way in those. So lots of ways to connect. It's all on my website, TaylorNorrisReiki.com. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, love it. So everyone, go check out this way. Go check out Taylor's offerings. She's awesome. So thank you for joining us for this episode. I hope you got inspired by our conversation. Come back soon. I will have another video for you very soon. So thank you so much, Taylor. I want to thank you. And anything that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with today that you feel is very relevant now that people need to hear?
Yeah, my heart is just really filled with gratitude. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Thank you, listeners, viewers, for being here. And I think that that would be my closing message, is to connect with the frequency of gratitude and gratefulness. And that is a very expansive gateway into your multidimensional self, into greater healing, greater empowerment, greater knowledge and connection. So that would be my invitation, is just to tap into that heart of gratitude and receive.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Bye, everyone. See you soon again.
Aloha.
Aloha.